Good morning. I'm looking at Habakkuk 2 again this morning. We're going to read from verse 2 through to verse 8. So the Lord is replying to Habakkuk's second complaint. The Lord replied, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. See, he is puffed up. His desires are not upright. But the righteous will live by his faith. Indeed, wine betrays him. He is arrogant and never at rest, because he is as greedy as the grave. And like death is never satisfied, he gathers to himself all the nations and takes captive all the peoples. Will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn, saying," and then there are 5 woes. "Woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion. How long must this go on? Will not your debtors suddenly arise? Will they not wake up and make you tremble? Then you will become their victim. Because you have plundered many nations, the peoples who are left will plunder you. For you have shed man's blood. You have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them." Verses 5 to 20 are a catalogue of woes that will come upon Babylon. It's a dirge, it's a list of 5 woes and the reasons why the Babylonians will suffer them. And all the people who have suffered at the hands of the Babylonians will be able to say these words, sustaining themselves in their time of suffering at the hands of the Babylonians. Indeed, it seems they'll taunt them, verse 6, with ridicule and scorn. These words are a bit like a satirical cartoon used to undermine the ruling power of Babylon. But Habakkuk doesn't say them with glee. God doesn't relish the judgment of the wicked. He wants people everywhere to repent and come to faith in him and find life, not judgment. But like the Pharaoh of Egypt, the Babylonian hearts are hard and cruel, and many impervious to the claims of God on them. But it may be the case that these words are spoken to try and soften some of their hearts, to warn them, get them to turn away from their wickedness, to turn back to God. But how do we read these words? Well, they are a warning. They warn us that if we are like this, if we are guilty of the crimes of Babylon, then we may face the same judgment. They're a warning to those in power, telling those in power that one day that power will end, empires will fall, just as Babylon did. And you could read them as a checklist. You could think, again, are we guilty of anything that is being described? Do we need to look at our lives and change? As we read them, they are a promise to the persecuted church as they picture the final day of judgment. This will end, this chapter says. There will be judgment and righteousness. These verses call us to turn from sin in all its forms and turn to the living God. And verses 6 to 8 is the first woe, and it talks particularly about greed and empire building. The Babylonians crushed other countries with their army. They destroyed what was there. They took the people and wealth and plunder that they wanted, and they took it back home. And Habakkuk cries out, how long must this go on? The principle of how you treat another, so you'll be treated, comes through in these verses. The Babylonians are building our list of people they owe, if you like, through their actions. So one day their victims will rise, and Babylon will tremble, and they will be plundered. The Babylonians will become the victims. The Medes and the Persians suffered at the hands of the Babylonians, but they were the ones to exact justice on Babylon, as Daniel records. Belshazzar was slain 50 to 70 years or so after Habakkuk wrote. But we don't have to be empire formers to do what the Babylonians did. They misused and abused others for their own material gain. They were greedy and drunk on their wealth. And we can be just as selfishly materialistic today. It's been horrible to see people trying to make money out of the current COVID-19 crisis. It's sad to see shoddy financial practices where some can take advantage of others. International trade and majority world debt terms are weighted in favour of richer countries. Woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion. So how are your financial practices? Do you really believe that it's better to give than receive? Do you know what it is to be a cheerful giver? Instead of plundering nations, can we be known for giving to other nations, building people up, not destroying? This is a warning not to be a Babylonian, but to be a Macedonian in your attitude. See 2 Corinthians 8 to read more about them.